The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, transmitted across every human communications channel simultaneously. It was not a request. It was a command. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim stood in the United Earth Council chamber, reading the holographic text for the 5th time. His hands remained steady, but his jaw tightened with each word. The Galactic Concordat demanded humanity's presence at Dominaxis Prime in 30 days. The language was formal, cold, and absolute. There would be consequences for refusal, though the message did not specify what those might be. Dr. Jisoo Park entered the room quietly, carrying a data tablet filled with research. She had spent the last 72 hours studying every species that had received similar summons over the past 3 centuries. Her findings were not encouraging. 17 species currently lived under Concordat control, their governments reduced to puppets, their resources drained, their people scattered across the galaxy as labor for wealthier worlds. Hyunwoo turned to face her. His hair had more gray than it did 5 years ago when he left military service to become a diplomat. He had hoped diplomacy would be easier than war. He was learning otherwise. "Tell me something good," he said. Jisoo shook her head. "There is nothing good. Every species that attended these summons left diminished. The Concordat does not negotiate. They dictate terms and expect compliance. And if we refuse to attend, that has never happened. But based on their historical patterns, they would likely impose sanctions first. Cut off trade routes, seize human assets in their territories. If that fails, military action becomes probable." Hyunwoo walked to the window overlooking Geneva. Earth looked peaceful from here, unaware that their freedom might be ending. Humanity had reached the stars only 50 years ago, using experimental faster-than-light drives that no other species understood. They built colonies on 300 worlds, established trade with dozens of alien civilizations, and carefully avoided the attention of the Galactic Concordat. That careful avoidance had apparently ended. Captain Daehyun Lee arrived that afternoon with the military assessment. He was younger than Hyunwoo, but carried himself with the confidence of someone who had seen real combat. He laid out star charts showing Concordat fleet positions, analyzed their weapons technology, and calculated probable outcomes. The numbers were brutal. The Concordat controlled 847 species across 200,000 systems. Their combined military forces numbered in the millions of ships. Humanity had perhaps 4,000 military vessels, most of them patrol craft and frigates. Earth's mighty carriers and battleships numbered fewer than 200. "Can we win?" Hyunwoo asked. Daehyun hesitated. "Win what? A single battle? Perhaps a war? No, not against those numbers. Not with conventional tactics." "What about unconventional tactics?" "That depends on how desperate we are willing to become." The next 2 weeks passed in intense preparation. Hyunwoo assembled his delegation carefully. He needed experts in alien psychology, economics, military strategy, and law. But more importantly, he needed people who would not break under pressure. The Concordat specialized in psychological intimidation, using their vast chambers and ancient traditions to make lesser species feel small and insignificant. They departed Earth aboard the diplomatic vessel Taguchi, a sleek ship designed more for comfort than combat. The journey to Dominaxis Prime would take 3 weeks through the approved trade routes. Hyunwoo used that time to drill his team on every possible scenario. Jisoo studied the 7 species that formed the Concordat leadership. The Luminar were crystalline beings who viewed themselves as the galaxy's natural philosophers and judges. The insectoid Vexlar were master manipulators who controlled much of the Concordat's intelligence services. The reptilian Draktar provided military might and valued strength above all else. The other 4 species were less influential but still ancient and powerful. What troubled Jisoo most was not their strength but their arrogance. They believed absolutely in their right to rule. They had maintained control for thousands of years through a combination of military power, economic leverage, and psychological dominance. Species that resisted were crushed quickly and publicly, serving as examples to others. As the Taguchi approached Dominaxis Prime, the crew fell silent. The planet itself was beautiful, covered in purple oceans and golden continents, but orbiting above it was a structure that took their breath away. The Eternal Station was larger than Earth's moon, a massive construct of metal and crystal that housed the governments of 847 species. Tens of thousands of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Hyunwoo stood on the bridge watching the station grow larger in the view screen. Somewhere in that massive structure, the Concordat was preparing to break humanity's spirit and bind them in chains of law and tribute. They had done it 847 times before. They expected to do it again. What they did not know was that humanity had spent those 3 weeks doing more than preparing for negotiation. Messages had been sent through secret channels. Plans had been set in motion. Contingencies had been activated across human space. The Concordat expected another species to bow and submit. They were about to learn that humans were different. Humans had a word for situations like this, passed down through thousands of years of history. The word was defiance. The Taeguki docked at the diplomatic port. Hyunwoo straightened his suit and turned to his team. "Remember," he said quietly, "they only have power if we grant it to them. Let us see what happens when we do not." They walked down the boarding ramp into the controlled chaos of the Eternal Station. Their summons had arrived. Now began the most important negotiation in human history. The Grand Chamber was designed to intimidate. Hyunwoo understood this the moment the massive doors opened before him. The ceiling stretched upward for hundreds of meters, covered in holographic displays showing the vastness of Concordat territory. Every wall displayed the symbols of 847 conquered species, arranged in order of their submission. The empty space at the end was clearly meant for humanity's symbol. High Magistrate Velthar sat on an elevated platform at the chamber's center. His crystalline body refracted light into rainbow patterns that danced across the walls. Around him sat the other Concordat leaders, each positioned to look down upon whoever stood in the supplicant circle below. Thousands of alien observers filled the gallery seats, come to witness another species bend the knee. Hyunwoo walked to the circle alone, as protocol demanded. His footsteps echoed in the vast space. He refused to look up at the Concordat leaders, instead keeping his gaze level. It was a small act of defiance, but he saw several alien observers lean forward with interest. No species had ever refused to show proper deference before. Humanity. Velthar's voice resonated through the chamber like musical chimes. You have been summoned to answer for violations of galactic order. Your expansion has been reckless. Your technology develops without oversight. Your independence threatens the stability we have maintained for millennia. The Concordat has determined that humanity must be integrated into proper civilization. Chancellor Kixmoth leaned forward, his insectoid features clicking with what might have been amusement. Do not be alarmed. Integration is standard. 17 species currently enjoy Concordat protection and guidance. You will join them. Overlord Craven, the massive reptilian whose species provided most of the Concordat's military might, growled softly. It is the natural order. The strong guide the weak, the ancient teach the young, the civilized control the barbaric. Hyunwoo remained silent, waiting. He had learned in military service that sometimes the best response was no response. Velthar continued, his voice taking on a formal tone. The terms of integration are as follows. First, humanity will surrender administrative control of 60% of your colony worlds to Concordat oversight. These worlds will be governed by Concordat appointees who will ensure proper development and resource allocation. A holographic display appeared, showing human colonies marked in red. Hyunwoo recognized worlds where millions of humans lived. New Busan, Nova Seoul, Harmony Station, all marked for seizure. Second, humanity will pay retroactive access fees for unauthorized use of established trade routes. The amount has been calculated at 500 years of economic output, payable over the next millennium. Advisor Minho Choi, sitting in the delegation section, quickly calculated the numbers. He made a small gesture that Hyunwoo understood. The payment would reduce human civilization to poverty for generations. Everything they built would be taken to pay this debt. Third, all human technological innovations must be shared with the Concordat. You will provide complete specifications for your faster-than-light drives, your artificial intelligence systems, and your weapons technology. Concealing any innovation will be considered an act of war. Jisoo tensed. Humanity's technological independence was their only advantage. The Concordat's technology was ancient and stagnant, maintained through tradition rather than innovation. Losing their edge would leave humans vulnerable. Fourth, Concordat military forces will establish permanent garrisons in the Sol system and on 10 other major human worlds. These forces will ensure compliance with Concordat law and provide protection from external threats. Lieutenant Yoonji Nam, head of the delegation's security detail, noticed something troubling. Concordat warships had been repositioning over the past weeks, moving closer to human territories. This was not negotiation. This was preparation for occupation. Fifth, human population growth will be restricted according to Concordat guidelines. Each world will have an assigned maximum population, and breeding permits must be obtained from Concordat authorities. A murmur ran through the alien observers. Even among species that had submitted, this term was considered harsh. But no one spoke against it. They had learned long ago that opposing the Concordat was futile. Sixth, human military vessels are forbidden from traveling beyond the Earth local cluster without Concordat authorization. Any unauthorized military movement will be treated as hostile action. Seventh and finally, Concordat advisors will be installed in all major human government positions. These advisors will have veto authority over any legislation or policy decision. This ensures humanity does not make unwise choices that might destabilize the region. The terms finished, Velthar's crystalline form glowed brighter. These are standard integration protocols. They have been applied successfully to 17 other species. They are not negotiable. They are not optional. They are the price of continued existence in civilized space. Kixmoth added. Naturally, humanity may review these terms. We are not unreasonable. You have one solar rotation to provide formal acceptance. Craven's laugh was like rocks grinding together, though I cannot imagine what there is to review. These are generous terms. The alternative is far less pleasant. Hyunwoo finally spoke, his voice calm and clear. I have one question. The chamber fell silent. Supplicants did not ask questions. They thanked the Concordat for their wisdom and begged for mercy. What happens if we refuse? The silence deepened. Belthar's glow dimmed slightly as if confused. Refuse? Yes, what happens if humanity declines these terms? Kixmoth's mandibles clicked rapidly. Decline is not possible. The terms are mandatory. Everything is possible, Hyunwoo said. You have presented demands. I ask what happens if we do not accept them. Craven rose from his seat, his massive form casting shadows across the chamber. Then you will be crushed. Your worlds will be seized. Your ships will be destroyed. Your people will be scattered. This is what happens to species that defy the Concordat. We have done it before. We will do it again if necessary. I see. Then we require time to discuss among ourselves. Velthar seemed to regain his composure. Very well. You have 48 Earth hours. Return then with your acceptance. The ceremony of integration will proceed immediately after. Hyunwoo bowed slightly, the minimum required by protocol, and turned to leave. His delegation followed, their faces carefully neutral. But inside, each of them was calculating odds, weighing options, and preparing for what might come next. As they walked through the vast corridors of the Eternal Station, Minho spoke quietly. Those terms are impossible. Accepting them means the end of human independence. I know, Hyunwoo replied. Then what do we do? Hyunwoo smiled, but there was no humor in it. We do what humans have always done when faced with impossible choices. We find a third option. The delegation returned to the Taegukgi in silence. Once aboard and certain their communications were secure, the facade dropped. Minho immediately began calculating financial impacts. Yoonji reviewed security footage of Concordat military movements. Jisoo pulled up historical records of the 3 species that had refused Concordat demands. Hyunwoo initiated a quantum link to Earth. The connection was instantaneous but limited to audio only. Minister Taeyang-song's voice came through clearly despite the vast distance. We watched the proceedings, Taeyang said. The terms are unacceptable. Agreed. But their military superiority is real. Can we survive their retaliation? Admiral Sunmi is on the line. I will let her answer. Another voice joined the channel. Admiral Sunmi Han commanded Earth's entire military fleet. She was brilliant, ruthless, and had never lost a strategic engagement. She was also Hyunwoo's former commanding officer, which made their relationship complicated. We cannot win a conventional war, Sunmi said bluntly. Their numbers are too great. However, conventional warfare may not be necessary. Our technology is different from theirs. We developed it independently, which means they do not fully understand it. We have advantages they do not expect, and what kind of advantages? The kind I would prefer not to discuss over quantum channels. But I can tell you this. If you refuse their demands, we are prepared. Not to win, perhaps, but to make the cost of conquering us unacceptably high. Yunwu absorbed this. How high? High enough that they will need to consider whether maintaining their authority is worth the price. Jisoo interrupted, pulling up her research. I found something important. The Concordat has not fought a real war in 4 centuries. Their last major military action was against the Kelvax species 380 years ago. Since then, every species they have confronted has submitted through intimidation alone. What happened to the Kelvax? Yunwu asked. They were destroyed, but the records are sparse. The Concordat does not like discussing it. I managed to find some independent accounts from neutral species. The Kelvax did not go quietly. The war lasted 7 years and cost the Concordat dearly. After that, they focused on psychological dominance rather than military conquest. Minho added his findings. Their economy is stagnant. They extract tribute from subordinate species but invest little in innovation. Their infrastructure is maintained through tradition and manual labor. If we cut off their access to human trade, several Concordat worlds would face shortages within months. Yunji provided the military assessment. Their fleet is large but dispersed. Gathering enough ships to actually invade human space would take months. And I noticed something else. Their formations are rigid, their tactics predictable. They rely on overwhelming force rather than clever strategy. Hyunwoo felt pieces falling into place. The Concordat was not invincible. They were old, set in their ways, and reliant on fear rather than actual strength. But they had maintained control for so long that everyone believed in their power. What if, he said slowly, we simply refuse? The channel went quiet. Finally, Taeyang spoke. Explain. The Concordat expects compliance. They expect us to argue over terms, beg for mercy, or possibly fight and lose quickly. What if we do none of those things? What if we simply walk away? They will attack, Sunmi said. Perhaps. But think about what that means for them. If they attack and we defend successfully, even partially, their reputation shatters. Other species will see that the Concordat can be resisted. If they attack and suffer heavy losses, their military weakness becomes public. If they do not attack after making threats, they appear weak anyway. You are suggesting we call their bluff, Taeyang said. I am suggesting we force them into a no-win scenario, the same scenario they tried to force on us. Jisoo leaned forward, excited. It could work. I found evidence that several subordinate species are unhappy with Concordat rule. If we successfully defy them, others might follow. The Concordat's greatest fear is not losing one species, but losing the appearance of inevitability. The discussions continued for hours. Plans were made and discarded. Contingencies were developed. By the time the delegation prepared for sleep, they had the outline of something unprecedented. Humanity would not fight the Concordat. Humanity would ignore them. The next day, Agent Jiho Kang made contact. He was human intelligence's best operative, embedded deep in Concordat space. His message was brief but significant. The Concordat had conducted surveillance of human territory, but their intelligence was incomplete. They knew about major colonies and fleets, but they had missed how fast humanity was expanding. They had missed secret shipyards, hidden bases, and experimental technology installations. More importantly, Jiho had discovered that the Concordat was worried. Not openly, but in private communications between their leaders. They discussed humanity's unpredictable technology. They noted human military tactics that defied traditional patterns. They wondered if integration might be more difficult than planned. On Earth, scientist Bora Im briefed the Defense Council on Project Exodus. It was experimental technology based on quantum displacement theory. In simple terms, it could move objects across vast distances instantaneously. The energy requirements were enormous, the risks were significant, and they had only tested it on small objects. But theoretically, it could relocate entire installations. Even colonies, how long to scale it up? Taeyang asked. Weeks, maybe months. The math is solid, but the engineering is complex. You have 72 hours. Make it work. The 48-hour deadline approached. Hyunwoo had not slept. His team worked continuously, refining their response, coordinating with Earth, ensuring every piece was in position. Emissary Thalzor requested a private meeting. He represented one of the subordinate species, an amphibious race that had submitted to the Concordat 2 centuries ago. He arrived alone and spoke carefully. What I tell you is treason, Thalzor said, but I believe it is necessary. There are others like me, representatives of species that hate Concordat rule but lack the strength to resist. We have watched humanity. We see your independence, your innovation, your unwillingness to bow. If you defy the Concordat and survive, others will follow. And if we fail, then nothing changes. We remain slaves, but if you succeed, you offer hope. That alone is worth the risk. What do you need from us? Nothing. Just do not submit. Show the galaxy that the Concordat can be resisted. The rest will follow naturally. The meeting ended. Hyunwoo returned to the Teguki. The 48 hours had expired. It was time to return to the Grand Chamber and deliver humanity's response. As he prepared, Hyunwoo thought about the absurdity of the situation. Humanity, a species barely 50 years in space, was about to challenge an empire that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. The odds were impossible. The risks were catastrophic. Success seemed unlikely, but humans had faced impossible odds before. They had a long history of looking at overwhelming power and saying one simple word: no. Today, Hyunwoo would say that word on behalf of all humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. While the Concordat waited confidently for humanity's submission, their intelligence services were uncovering disturbing information. Inquisitor Draxel stood before the Security Council with reports that contradicted everything they believed about the primitive human species. Their faster-than-light drives are superior to ours, Draxel stated flatly. Not slightly better, significantly better. Human ships can travel 30% faster than our fastest vessels. Their jump calculations are more accurate. Their fuel efficiency is remarkable. Chancellor Kixmoth's mandibles clicked in agitation. Impossible. We have refined FTL technology for 5,000 years. And yet humans achieved comparable results in 50 years by approaching the problem differently. They did not improve existing technology. They invented something new, Overlord Craven growled. What else? Their artificial intelligence systems are more sophisticated than anything in Concordat space. Their materials science has produced armor compounds we cannot easily penetrate. Their weapons, while fewer in number, pack considerable power. And there is something else. Draxel displayed holographic images of human industrial facilities. They have developed automated construction systems that replicate themselves. Their industrial capacity is not fixed. It grows exponentially. Within 10 years, human production capabilities may rival our own despite having a fraction of our population. Velthar's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been concern. Why were we not informed of this earlier? Because we did not look closely enough. Humans are new to the galaxy. We assumed their technology would be primitive. We were wrong. Meanwhile, Agent Jiho was having his own revelations. He had infiltrated Concordat data networks using techniques the ancient aliens had never anticipated. What he found shocked him. The mighty Concordat fleet was a fiction. Yes, they had millions of ships, but most were centuries old, maintained through tradition rather than upgraded with modern technology. The fleet was scattered across thousands of systems, preventing quick concentration of forces. Many ships were ceremonial, used for parades and intimidation rather than actual combat. More revealing was the political situation. The 847 member species were not united. Most resented Concordat rule, but lacked the courage or capability to resist. Internal communication showed constant minor rebellions, quickly suppressed but never entirely eliminated. The Concordat maintained control through fear and the appearance of invincibility. If that appearance cracked, the entire system might collapse. Jiho sent encrypted reports to Earth and the Teguki. Hyunwoo read them with growing understanding. The Concordat was not strong. They were old and tired, maintaining power through bluff and tradition. They had not faced a real challenge in so long they had forgotten how. Dr. Jisoo met again with emissary Thalzor in a quiet section of the station. The amphibious alien was nervous but determined. There are 17 of us, Thalzor explained, representatives of the subordinate species. We meet in secret, careful to avoid Concordat surveillance. We share information, coordinate minor resistances, and wait for an opportunity. Opportunity for what? Freedom. We lack the military strength to rebel individually. But if one species successfully defied the Concordat, others might join. A coalition of subordinate species backed by human military support could force the Concordat to negotiate true equality. You are asking us to be the first. Yes. And it is unfair. You will bear the greatest risk. But it is the only way. Someone must be first, Jisoo understood. She had studied countless revolutions throughout human history. The pattern was always the same. One group had to take the impossible risk. If they succeeded, others would follow. If they failed, they would be forgotten. What can you offer us? Information. Intelligence on concordant military positions, supply routes, political divisions. We cannot fight openly, but we can help you prepare. And if you succeed in defying them, we will support you. The meeting ended with an exchange of encrypted data. Jisoo returned to the Teguki with intelligence worth more than weapons. She now understood the Concordate's vulnerabilities. On Earth, Bora Im was performing miracles. Her team had scaled up the quantum displacement technology faster than anyone thought possible. The first test involved moving an entire space station from Earth orbit to the outer solar system. The station disappeared in a flash of exotic energy and reappeared 4 billion kilometers away, intact and functional. We can move colonies, Bora reported to Admiral Sunmi. Not all of them and not quickly. But the major population centers can be displaced if the Concordate attacks. They will arrive expecting to find targets and find empty space instead. What about weapons applications? Bora hesitated. Theoretically, we could displace objects into enemy ships, or displace parts of enemy ships away, leaving them crippled. But the targeting is difficult and the energy costs are extreme. Make it work. We need every advantage. Across human space, other preparations were underway. Every human civilian in Concordate territory received quiet messages. Prepare to leave quickly. Sell your assets. Convert wealth to portable forms. Be ready to evacuate within days. Human merchant vessels began avoiding Concordate ports. Trade contracts were quietly terminated. Human businesses started withdrawing from Concordate markets. The moves were subtle enough to avoid immediate alarm, but comprehensive enough to extract humanity's economic presence completely. Commander Youngjae, Park led a covert fleet of fast attack ships into position near key Concordate supply routes. They did not attack. They simply waited, ready to strike if the order came. The Concordate leadership met again to discuss the human problem. What had seemed simple was becoming complicated. Perhaps we should reconsider the terms, suggested Counselor Mixaria, one of the more pragmatic voices. Make them less harsh. Keep humanity as allies rather than subjects. Craven snarled. That would show weakness. Every subordinate species would demand similar treatment. Our authority would collapse. Our authority may collapse anyway if we push too hard, Mixaria countered. Humans are different from previous species. They have real capabilities. Then we destroy them quickly as an example to others, Kixmuth said. A overwhelming show of force. Crush human resistance in days. No other species will dare challenge us after that. Velthar considered both positions. The crystalline being was ancient and wise, but even he did not fully understand what was about to happen. The Concordate had maintained control for so long through careful calculation of force and psychology. They had never encountered a species that simply refused to play by the rules. Back on the Teguki, Yunwu received final confirmations from Earth. Everything was ready. Project Exodus could protect civilian populations. The fleet was positioned for defensive operations. Economic extraction was nearly complete. Intelligence on Concordate vulnerabilities had been distributed to all human commanders. The 48 hours had passed. It was time to return to the Grand Chamber. Hyunwoo dressed carefully, choosing to wear his old military uniform rather than diplomatic robes. It was a subtle message. He was not coming as a supplicant. He was coming as a soldier, his team assembled behind him. Each of them understood what was about to happen. They were going to do something no species had done in the Concordate's long history. They were going to say no and walk away. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about humanity. Humans did not respond well to ultimatums. The Grand Chamber was even more crowded than before. Word had spread that humanity's integration ceremony would occur today. Representatives from hundreds of species had gathered to witness another subordinate people join the Concordate's collection. It was always entertaining to watch proud species realize their insignificance. Yunwoo walked to the supplicant's circle, but this time he was not alone. His entire delegation stood with him in a line. This violated protocol. Only the primary supplicant was allowed in the circle, but no one stopped them. The Concordate was confident enough to tolerate minor rebellions before the inevitable submission. High Magistrate Velthar's crystalline form glowed with satisfaction. Humanity, you have considered our generous terms. Speak your acceptance and integration will proceed immediately. Your symbol will be added to our collection, and you will join the community of civilized species. Chancellor Kixmoth leaned forward eagerly. Overlord Craven looked bored, already anticipating the familiar ritual of submission. Around the chamber, alien observers settled in to watch another species bend the knee. Hyunwoo stood silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was clear and carried to every corner of the vast chamber. The human race has reviewed the terms proposed by the Galactic Concordat. We have consulted with our government, our military commanders, our scientists, and our people. We have reached a unanimous decision. He paused. Every being in the chamber leaned forward slightly. We refuse. The silence was absolute. For 3 full seconds no one moved. No one spoke. The word hung in the air like something impossible. Then chaos erupted. Refuse? Velthar's voice lost its musical quality, becoming sharp. Explain yourself. The terms are unacceptable. We decline to surrender our colonies. We decline to pay tribute. We decline to share our technology. We decline to accept military occupation. We decline to restrict our population. We decline to limit our fleet movements. We decline to accept concorded advisors in our government. We decline all terms in their entirety. Kixmoth's mandibles clicked rapidly. This is not a negotiation. These are mandatory conditions for continued existence in civilized space. Then we will exist outside civilized space. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws all presence from concordate territory. Our citizens, our assets, our vessels, we are leaving. Craven rose to his full height, his massive form radiating threat. You cannot refuse. No species has ever refused. We just did. Hyunwoo's voice remained calm. We wish the Concordat no harm. We seek no conflict, but we will not submit to your authority. Our borders are now closed to Concordat vessels. Any ship entering human space without authorization will be treated as hostile. This negotiation is concluded. Velthar's form pulsed with what could only be rage. You do not understand what you have done. The Concordat controls 847 species. Our fleet numbers in the millions. Your tiny collection of worlds will be crushed within weeks. Perhaps. That is your choice to make. But understand that crushing us will cost you. We will not surrender quietly. Every human world will fight. Every human ship will resist. You will pay for every meter of space you take. And while you are spending blood and treasure conquering us, the galaxy will be watching. Jisoo stepped forward, holding a data crystal. We have discovered interesting information about the Concordat. Your military strength is exaggerated. Your economy is stagnant. Your subject species hate you. We are releasing all of this information to every independent news service in the galaxy. Let the truth be known. She activated the crystal. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, information flooded public networks. Detailed analysis of Concordat military weaknesses. Evidence of corruption and abuse. Testimony from subordinate species about their treatment. Economic data showing the Concordat's dependence on tribute rather than production. Kixmoth shrieked. This is an act of war. No, Hyunwoo said. War is what happens when you attack us. This is simply information. The truth. Something the Concordat has hidden for too long. On Earth, President Narration was broadcasting simultaneously to all human worlds and beyond. People of Earth, people of humanity across the stars, today we declare our independence. We bow to no one. We will trade with those who respect us as equals. We will fight those who threaten us. And we will ignore those who claim authority they have not earned. Our borders are closed until the galaxy learns to treat us with the dignity every free species deserves. Back in the Grand Chamber, Velthar made one final attempt. Reconsider. This path leads only to destruction. We do not wish to crush you, but we will if necessary. Submit now, and we will show mercy. Mercy that comes with chains is not mercy, Hyunwoo replied. We would rather die free than live as slaves. That is the human way. He turned to leave. His delegation followed. For a moment it seemed the Concordat might order their immediate arrest, but doing so would only prove humanity's point. They were not free. They were prisoners who did not yet realize it. As the human delegation walked toward the exit, something unexpected happened. Emissary Thalzor stood. His amphibious form was trembling, but his voice was clear. The people of Nargol stand with humanity. We too refuse Concordat authority. We declare our independence. Chaos erupted again. Guards moved toward Thalzor, but 2 other emissaries stood as well. representatives of subordinate species inspired by humanity's courage, declaring their own freedom. Hyunwoo did not stop walking. This was not about saving other species. It was about saving humanity. But as he left the chamber, he heard more voices joining the rebellion. The information Jisoo had released was spreading. Subordinate species were learning they were not alone in their hatred of concordant rule. The human delegation returned to the Taegukgi. As soon as they were aboard, Captain Daehyun received urgent messages. Concordat military vessels were moving to intercept them. The station's defenses were powering up. "Get us out of here," Hyunwoo ordered. The Taegukgi's engines flared to life. Human ships were fast, built for speed rather than heavy armor. They accelerated away from the Eternal Station, leaving Concordat vessels struggling to catch up. Within minutes, they had jumped to FTL, racing back toward human space. Behind them, the Grand Chamber was in chaos. 3 subordinate species had declared independence. A dozen more were considering it. The information humanity released was undermining Concordat authority across the galaxy, and the humans themselves had simply walked away, leaving the mighty Concordat looking confused and impotent. Velthar called an emergency session of Concordat leadership. They had to decide quickly, crush the human rebellion immediately and publicly, restoring fear, or negotiate and risk appearing weak. There was no good option. Craven demanded total war. "We mobilize everything. Every ship, every weapon. We reduce Earth to rubble as an example." Kixmoth agreed. "This cannot stand. If humans defy us successfully, our entire system collapses." But Maxaria raised a troubling point. What if we cannot crush them quickly? What if it becomes a prolonged war? Every day we spend fighting humans is a day our subordinate species grow bolder. We could win against humanity and lose everything else. The debate raged, but ultimately pride won over pragmatism. The Concordat would respond with overwhelming force. They would teach humanity the price of defiance. Orders went out across the galaxy. Assemble the fleet. Prepare for war. Target, human space. Objective, complete submission or total destruction. Aboard the Taegukgi racing toward Earth, Hyunwoo allowed himself a small smile. They had done it. Humanity had refused. Now came the hard part. They had to survive what came next. But humans had survived worse. They had faced extinction events, world wars, and impossible odds throughout their history. They were still here. Still free. Still fighting. The Concordat was about to learn what humans had known for thousands of years. Freedom is not given. It is taken. And once taken, it is defended with everything you have. The galaxy would never be the same. Field Marshal Korath commanded the largest battle fleet assembled in 4 centuries, 300 warships. Everything the Concordat could spare without leaving their territories undefended. Their target was New Busan, humanity's largest colony outside Earth. 40 million humans lived there, making it perfect for an example. Destroy New Busan quickly and brutally, and human resistance would crumble. The fleet emerged from FTL at the edge of the New Busan system. Weapons charged, targeting systems locked on the inhabited planet. Korath prepared to broadcast the ultimatum: surrender immediately or be destroyed. But the planet was not there. Sensors showed empty space where New Busan should have been. The star was correct. The orbital mechanics were right. But the planet, its moons, its orbital stations, all of it was simply gone. Not destroyed, gone. "Check your instruments," Korath ordered. "This must be an error." It was not an error. As the fleet scanned frantically, they found only automated message buoys floating in space. The messages were identical, broadcast in every known language. "This system is sovereign human territory. Your presence is unauthorized. Depart immediately or face defensive action." Korath stared at the empty space in disbelief. An entire planet did not simply disappear. It was impossible. Yet sensors confirmed the evidence. New Busan was gone, relocated somewhere unknown by technology the Concordat did not understand. The fleet's second target was the mining colony on Hyundai 7. When they arrived, it was also gone. So were the shipyards at Nova Sol. So were the research stations at Harmony Cluster. Every major human installation they targeted had vanished, leaving only defiant messages. On Earth, engineer Woo Jin Seo monitored the displacement operations with satisfaction. Project Exodus was working. They could not move every human installation, but they could move the critical ones. Let the Concordat waste time and resources chasing targets that were no longer there. But Bora Im had warned the displacement technology was not perfect. The energy requirements were immense. They could only perform a limited number of relocations before exhausting their power reserves. The hidden colonies would be safe for now, but humanity could not hide forever. Admiral Sun Mi Han watched the Concordate fleet movements from Earth's command center. They were doing exactly what she predicted, concentrating forces for overwhelming strikes against fixed targets. It was traditional Concordate doctrine, refined over millennia but never updated. Humans did not fight traditionally. Commander Young Jae Park led a strike force of fast attack ships against a Concordate logistics depot. The depot was lightly defended, considered safe deep in Concordate territory. Young Jae's ships jumped in, destroyed the supply stockpiles with precision strikes, and jumped out before defenders could respond. The entire raid lasted 4 minutes. Similar strikes occurred across Concordate space, not against military targets where Concordate strength was concentrated, but against supply lines, communication relays, and isolated installations. Human ships were faster and could calculate jump coordinates more accurately. They struck and vanished before Concordate forces could respond. Captain Subin Huang commanded a fighter wing that specialized in hit-and-run tactics. Her pilots were young, aggressive, and trained in maneuvers that Concordate ships could not match. They attacked a Concordate patrol flotilla, destroyed 3 ships, and escaped with 0 losses. The engagement lasted 6 minutes. The Concordate military was discovering a frustrating truth. They had more ships, but humans were faster, more flexible, and willing to take risks that traditional doctrine forbade. Every attempt to engage human forces resulted in either empty space or ambushes. Human vessels refused to fight fair, but the situation was worse than simple military setbacks. The subordinate species were watching. 3 had declared independence openly. 7 more were delaying tribute payments, claiming economic difficulties. A dozen were conducting secret negotiations with human representatives about potential alliances. On the planet Nargul, Delegate Rixala led an open revolt. His people seized Concordate administrative buildings and expelled Concordate officials. When Concordate ships arrived to restore order, they found the planet defended by a coalition fleet, Nargul ships supported by vessels from 2 other rebellious species. The Concordate commander hesitated, unwilling to start a battle that might spread the rebellion further. Chancellor Kixmoth was in a rage. "This is humanity's fault. Their defiance has inspired rebellion everywhere. We must crush them immediately before the situation deteriorates further." But crushing humanity was proving difficult. The Concordate fleet could not find them. Human colonies had relocated. Human ships refused direct engagement. Human raids were damaging Concordate infrastructure faster than it could be repaired. Overlord Craven proposed a direct assault on Earth itself. "Take their homeworld and the rest will surrender. Concentrate everything on Sol system. End this quickly." Field Marshal Korath was ordered to redirect the entire battle fleet to Earth, 500 ships stripped from every available source. It was everything the Concordate could muster. Losing this fleet would leave Concordate space vulnerable, but they had no choice. Human defiance had to end. As the fleet prepared for the jump to Sol system, observer Zentari broadcast reports across the galaxy. The neutral journalist had been documenting events since humanity's refusal. His reports showed Concordate brutality, human resistance, and the growing rebellion among subordinate species. Public opinion was shifting. Many species that had accepted Concordate authority were now questioning it. On Earth, Admiral Sunmi received word of the approaching fleet, 500 ships. It was more than intelligence had predicted the Concordate could spare. Earth's defenses were strong but could not defeat those numbers in open battle. "Activate Protocol Last Stand," Sunmi ordered. Around Earth, defensive platforms powered up. Automated weapon systems came online. The human fleet, smaller but concentrated, took defensive positions. They could not win, but they could make victory cost the Concordate dearly. Minister Taiyang contacted Sunmi. "Can we hold?" "For a while. We will destroy perhaps half their fleet before they overwhelm our defenses, but we cannot win this fight. Then we make sure everyone is watching when we lose. Let the galaxy see what the Concordate does to species that want freedom." Lieutenant Unji was coordinating planetary evacuations. If Earth fell, as many civilians as possible needed to escape. Ships were standing by to evacuate critical personnel and cultural artifacts. Humanity might lose Earth, but they would survive. Hyunwoo stood in the command center watching preparations. He had started this by refusing concordant demands. Now Earth faced destruction because of that choice. The weight of responsibility was crushing. Jisoo stood beside him. This is not your fault. The concordant made this choice. They could have accepted our refusal and moved on. They chose war to maintain their pride. Will it be worth it if Earth falls? Earth is a planet. Humanity is an idea. The idea that free beings do not submit to tyrants. That idea will survive even if Earth does not. And that idea will eventually destroy the concordant. The concordant fleet jumped into Sol system right at the edge of human defense range. 500 ships against Earth's 200 defenders. Field Marshal Korath opened communications on all frequencies. Humanity, this is your final chance. Surrender immediately. Accept integration terms and Earth will be spared. Refuse and we will reduce your homeworld to rubble. You have 1 hour to respond. Admiral Sunmi did not hesitate. She opened a return channel, broadcasting to the concordant fleet and every news service monitoring the situation. Field Marshal Korath, this is Admiral Sunmi Han of Earth Defense Command. You have entered sovereign human territory without authorization. You have 1 hour to withdraw. If you remain or advance, we will defend our home. We cannot defeat 500 ships. We will destroy approximately 200 of them before you overwhelm us. Those 200 ships represent thousands of lives. Are you prepared to pay that price? She transmitted tactical data showing exactly which concordant ships would be destroyed, including crew manifests and home ports. It was psychological warfare. She was making the cost personal, real, unavoidable. Korath hesitated. 200 ships was not an acceptable loss. It would cripple the concordant fleet for years. But retreating would make them look weak. He needed guidance. He contacted concordant leadership. The hour of decision had arrived. Advance and pay the terrible price or withdraw and admit they could not defeat humanity. There was no good choice, only painful ones. Velthar, Kixmoth, and Craven argued while their fleet waited at Earth's doorstep. The hour was running out. A decision had to be made, and whatever they decided would shape the galaxy's future. The hour passed in agonizing slowness. 500 concordant warships faced 200 human defenders across the void of space. Weapons were charged. Targeting systems locked. One word from Field Marshal Korath would begin the battle that would reshape galactic civilization. But that word did not come. On Dominaxis Prime, the concordant leadership was fracturing. Overlord Craven demanded immediate attack. Chancellor Kixmoth insisted on total victory at any cost. But High Magistrate Velthar, oldest and theoretically wisest of the leadership, was calculating different numbers. 200 ships lost. Perhaps 50,000 casualties among their own forces, billions spent replacing destroyed vessels. And even if they won, Earth destroyed, humanity crushed, what then? 7 species were in open rebellion. Dozens more were wavering. The galaxy had seen that the concordant could be defied. That knowledge could not be undestroyed. An unexpected voice joined the debate. Sage Talwen, leader of one of the galaxy's most ancient neutral species, offered mediation. His people had never joined the concordant, maintained independence through diplomacy and careful neutrality. If anyone could broker peace, it was him. Both sides faced destruction, Talwen said calmly. The concordant can win this battle, but at terrible cost. Humanity can fight but cannot survive. Neither outcome serves anyone's interests. Allow me to mediate a settlement. Velthar seized the opportunity. We accept mediation. But humanity must understand consequences of defiance. Field Marshal Korath received orders to stand down, maintain position, but do not attack. He broadcast to Admiral Sunmi. Neutral mediation has been offered. Do humans accept? Sunmi looked to Minister Taeyang, who looked to President Narayun. The decision took seconds. We accept. The relief was palpable across both fleets. No one wanted this battle. Everyone knew the costs. But pride and politics had trapped both sides. Talwen's intervention offered escape from the trap. The negotiations took place aboard a neutral vessel positioned between the fleets. Ambassador Hana Shin represented humanity, chosen because she was young, pragmatic, and untainted by the earlier confrontation. High Magistrate Velthar represented the concordant, trying to salvage something from the disaster. Sage Talwen moderated with ancient wisdom. Let us speak plainly. The old system is broken. Humanity has proven that species can successfully resist concordant authority. The subordinate species are already revolting. Fighting over Earth solves nothing, so we must create something new. Hana laid out humanity's requirements. We will never accept subordination. We demand recognition as fully independent, equal in status to the Concordat itself. We want open borders for trade with all species. No tribute, no restrictions on our technology or expansion, and the right to form alliances with whoever chooses to ally with us. Impossible, Velthar said reflexively. No species has ever been granted such status. Then grant it for the first time. The alternative is mutual destruction followed by galactic chaos. What do humans offer in return? Peace. We will not actively work to dismantle the Concordat. We will share some technologies on a trade basis. We will honor mutual defense agreements, and we will help create a new system where species can be either independent or Concordat members by choice, not by force. Velthar was silent for long minutes. The crystalline being was genuinely thinking, calculating possibilities. Finally he spoke. If we grant humans this status, every subordinate species will demand the same. Perhaps they should have it. Rule by consent rather than by force. You maintain authority over those who choose your leadership. Those who prefer independence can have it. Everyone benefits. The Concordat was built on hierarchy. The strong guide the weak. The strong guide the willing, Hana corrected. The weak who accept guidance benefit. Those who do not should be free to make their own mistakes. Talwen added his voice. The old Concordat is already dying. You can guide its transformation into something sustainable, or you can watch it collapse in rebellion and war. Choose wisely. The negotiations continued for 3 days while the fleets maintained their tense standoff. Captain Inho Beck, commanding Earth's flagship Independence, kept weapons ready, but hoped they would not be needed. Across the Concordat, species watched and waited, their own futures hanging on the outcome. Slowly, painfully, an agreement took shape. Humanity would be recognized as a sovereign associate of the Concordat, not a member, not subordinate, but equal in status and rights. They would maintain complete independence while having access to Concordat territories and markets. In exchange, humanity agreed to mutual defense pacts and limited technology sharing. More revolutionary was the provision that any species could petition for similar status. Requirements would be strict, proving capability for self-governance and defense, but it was possible. The Concordat was transforming from an empire into something closer to a federation of equals. Overlord Kryven refused to sign and resigned in protest. Chancellor Kixmoth was forced out by reform factions who saw the agreement as necessary survival. But Velthar signed, recognizing that adaptation was better than extinction. Councillor Mixaria became a driving force for implementation, pushing reforms throughout Concordat space. Within 6 months, 7 species had successfully petitioned for sovereign associate status. The Nargul were first, their rebellion having proven their capability. Others followed. The 17 formerly subordinate species found themselves with real choices for the first time in centuries. Not everyone was happy. Some Concordat members resented the loss of tribute and control. Some subordinate species struggled with the responsibilities of independence, but the galaxy was changing, driven by humanity's simple refusal to submit. A year after humanity walked out of the Grand Chamber, Ambassador Hyunwoo attended the first meeting of the Galactic Forum. It replaced the Grand Chamber as a gathering place, but with a critical difference. Every species present had equal voice and vote. There were no supplicants, no elevated platforms, no subordinates. Hyunwoo stood among representatives from hundreds of species, no longer the rebel, but an architect of the new order. Dr. Jisoo published her analysis of the transformation, explaining how one species saying no had cascaded into galactic reformation. Captain Daehyun commanded a joint human-alien patrol protecting trade routes from pirates. Former enemies working together for mutual benefit. It was not perfect, but it was progress. Agent Jiho retired from intelligence work and opened a cafe on New Busan. The colony had returned to its original location once the crisis passed. He served coffee to alien tourists who came to visit the world that had disappeared rather than submit one day. A young Nargul student visited the cafe. She was studying recent history and had questions. How did humanity have the courage to defy the Concordat? Were you not afraid? Jiho smiled, remembering those tense days. We were terrified. But we realized something important. Their power was only as real as we believed it to be. They controlled 847 species because those species accepted their authority. The moment we stopped accepting it, their power over us ended. But they had more ships, more weapons. Power is not just military might. It is psychological. The Concordat ruled through fear and the belief that resistance was impossible. We proved resistance was possible. Once we proved it, others followed. Fear is only effective if everyone believes in it. The young Nargle left thoughtful. Jiho watched her go, thinking about how much had changed. The galaxy was not perfect. The Concordat still existed, still powerful, still sometimes overbearing. But they no longer ruled through fear alone. They had to earn cooperation, respect boundaries, negotiate fairly. Admiral Sunmi addressed new recruits at Earth's Naval Academy. You are the generation that will never bow to tyrants. Remember what your predecessors taught the galaxy. Freedom is not given. It is claimed. Authority that cannot be questioned is tyranny. And tyranny, no matter how old or vast, can be defeated by courage and conviction. On Dominaxis Prime, High Magistrate Velthar supervised reforms with surprising enthusiasm. The ancient being had discovered that leading willing partners was more satisfying than commanding fearful subjects. The Concordat was smaller now, but healthier. Species that remained did so by choice, making them more loyal and productive. Counselor Mixaria became one of humanity's strongest allies, working to expand the Sovereign Associate Program. She understood that the old ways had been dying slowly for centuries. Humanity had simply accelerated the inevitable transformation. President Nari Yun stood before the United Earth Council, reflecting on their journey. We were told to submit or be destroyed. We chose a third option. We walked away. That choice cost us nothing and gained us everything. We did not defeat the Concordat through military might. We defeated them by refusing to accept their authority. That is the lesson we leave to future generations. Your freedom belongs to you. Never surrender it. No matter the cost. Ambassador Hana Shin, representing humanity at the Galactic Forum, watched new species petition for independence. Each success was another victory for the principle humanity had established. The galaxy was learning that strength came not from domination, but from cooperation between equals. Years later, historians would study this period and debate what made it possible. Some credited human technology. Others pointed to Concordat weakness.